What up, Bulls Nation? Welcome into the CHGO Bulls podcast, presented to you by PointsBet. Don't forget that promo code CHGO when you sign up to live your bet life.
Yours.
I'm Peck. You can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_Peck. This is my guy, Big Dave, over here. He is at BAW, BAWL Sports. Will, the thrill in Brazil. The magic bubble. He is at Won't Gottlieb. We are CHGO_Bulls. On Twitter. We got our producer hanging out with us. His name's Joey. You know him. You love him. We also got our new sales guy, Chris, hanging out with us today. What up, Chris?
Chillin', looking smooth, cool.
And
I like the wave right. That was very presidential on that wave right there. I like that, man. You know,
man belongs in a parade.
Yes, he does, man. Get this man afloat now. Joey, I got questions for you before you get into your 14 computers. I have a question.
Yep.
Did you go to the Kendrick concert?
Yeah, I did.
Tell me about it. How was it?
I did. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Second time I've seen him at the United Center. A lot of people there. Mm-hmm. You know, it's cool to see him selling it out. Baby Keem was very cool to see. I've been a Baby Keem fan for decently, like almost 3 years now. So it was cool to see. Cool to see them perform together. I mean, if anybody else is listening and is a Kendrick fan and he's coming to wherever you are, yeah, I recommend you go see it. It was a lot of fun.
What song was it for you where you just lost your mind? Was it Family Ties? Was that
Yes, I'm a huge Kendrick fan. So like when he does like All Right, like I thought that was great. That was awesome. But Family Ties with Baby Keem, when he brought him back out and the crowd was really into it. Like that's the only time I took out my phone to take a video because
I gotta see this.
Yeah, so that I think speaks volumes to how cool that part was.
Okay. All right. Now back to Matt. I know we've said a lot of words. He knows.
Matt is
about.
so
you
confused.
Crazy kids with your music. What was the median age of this Kendrick concert? 15?
Definitely not 15.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Cam in the comments said, speaking of music, I saw the Chili Peppers at Soldier this weekend. Amazing show. A bunch of my friends were at Chili Peppers.
Yes, Chili
Peppers
I would have went.
But I heard what the ticket prices were, and I was like, I love the Peppers. I do not love them that much.
So you know who opened for the Chili Peppers, Big Dave? Thundercat?
Thundercat opened for them?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Man, damn.
Lawrence is saying that the Strokes opened for the Peppers.
I heard Thundercat was there. I could be wrong.
Chili Peppers is my favorite rock band.
Wait, how is it that you didn't know, Mr. I know everything about music from like 2000 BC to now, didn't know that the Chili Peppers, a band you love, was playing at Soldier this past weekend?
I didn't know they were at Soldier. I was more focused on the Kendrick.
I will never trust you ever again whenever you talk about music.
That is a fair assessment, sir.
That is a gross oversight, sir.
That's great. Have you heard their new album?
Chili Peppers?
Yeah.
Some of it, yeah.
You like it's good, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for the Chili Peppers to put out bad albums.
Yeah, but they had one of them they had in the middle of that was Some
of them are just albums where they put out some crap in like because they just want to add more songs to an album that is partially good.
Correct. But this one was good.
Metallica's guilty of the same thing in some of their later albums.
This is true.
It's like, hey, here's 3 good songs and 7 shitty songs. Still making albums.
Hi, Will.
Did you go to a concert in Brazil this weekend, Will?
No, but I'll probably see some live music at some point, like some samba or something like that. Definitely. That's what he says. Hey, Joe, turn him up, please. Yeah, turn him up. We want to hear more
guys,
of the 3.
We got a lot to cover today. We're going to briefly touch on the Knicks and the Hornets and what they did with their respective off seasons, rounding out our Eastern Conference off-season evals that we've been doing for the last month or so. But before we get to those teams and their off seasons, we got to talk about the breaking news of this morning, which was, hey, remember when Kevin Durant demanded that trade back in June? Never mind. Here it is from Shams, the original tweet. Steve Nash, Josiah, and Sean Marks met with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman today in Los Angeles, or actually met on Monday, and have decided to move forward with partnership, Nets say. And then Shams followed that up in a statement from Nets GM Sean Marks. Quote, we are focusing on basketball with one collective goal in mind, build a lasting franchise to bring a championship to Brooklyn, end quote. So, guys, we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show because there was a report from Shams with updates on what's going on with KD, which teams are still in the hunt, what's the asking price. Right. And the 3 of us sat here and said it sounded more and more like they aren't going to get an offer that they deem to be worthy of Kevin Durant, and he's just going to stay in it this season. And that was the news of this morning.
Yeah, we literally said this yesterday. He would not be traded. He wasn't going to be – he would be there. It just seemed – you know what it's like? It's like telling, I don't know, your significant other, I want to see other people.
Yeah.
And then you go out there and you realize other people are shitty. You know what I'm saying? And then that's really what it is. He found out, well, they probably don't think you look like you think you look. And, like it's a lot more issues you got to go through and, a lot more red flags, maybe more than you're used to. And you realize you had everything at home, and then you just go back home. So it just
I feel like Big Dave's most recent serious girlfriend is getting a subliminal message sent right now. Like, hey, I made a mistake, sweetie.
Listen, she confessed she made a mistake. Like a month later, and I was like, yeah, well, when I'm done, I'm done. So that's just what that is. Shout out to you, though. You still cool. We're still cool. That's my dog.
What do you think about this, Will?
Go ahead, Will.
Well, it was like the other thing we were talking about yesterday, which was the Knicks being super desperate for Donovan Mitchell. I think, they were just kind of calling his bluff and dealing with the desperation that other teams were, waiting to see the asking price go up a little bit. Now they're calling his bluff. They're not going to do it. And I think that will actually drive up the price. I'm not convinced this is the end of the saga. I think, as we were talking about yesterday, maybe now because the Nets are saying, yeah, we're going to keep him, maybe now the Scotty Barneses of the world start to become a little bit more available because that's what's required to pry him away. Whereas before it was like, well, he's going to leave. It doesn't really matter. We don't have to throw our best package available. So I'm not convinced this is over, but definitely sort of like a emphatic message that they're not dealing with it and that they're going to risk him potentially sitting out games. So that was the other thing was this investigation with Ben Simmons and the league and coming to some sort of agreement between the 76ers and Simmons on what money he was going to get back. Obviously that played a role because, he's not going to sit out games if he's not going to be able to get that money back. So I think there's a little bit of that at play as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me ask you something. What do you think the Nets front office did wrong in this situation of trying to trade KD? Because it seems like Danny Ainge kind of has the Knicks, by the cojones right here. And, he's going to get whatever he wants. You had a better player, arguably top 3 in the league, and you still couldn't get, something great. You know what I'm saying? For were they asking too much, or what do you think they went wrong on this?
That's a tough one. I'm not even sure they did anything wrong. I think they explored the trade market, realized they weren't under any obligation to trade him, and anything you get back. I mean, there's the irony of the trade is whoever actually has enough to trade for KD, you're going to end up giving so much away that when you get KD, you're not going to be competitive because that's all you're going to have. So I think the Nets are just in a situation where they're going to lose if they trade him. So they may as well try to keep him and repair the situation. It seems like that's where it's heading, but we also don't know if KD's going to hold out games now. I think that will ultimately change the direction again if he decides to do that.
The part of this that is most curious to me is what was said in this meeting between Kevin Durant and his representation and Sean Marks and Steve Nash and the Nets to all of a sudden get Kevin on board.
Yeah.
Because that was what was explained as the original reason for his trade demand.
Yeah.
And then they came out with an update a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember the timelines exactly, after saying, KD basically said, it's him, it's me or them. Mm-hmm. Get rid of Steve Nash as this team's head coach, get rid of Sean Marks as the head of this team's front office, or trade me.
Yeah.
So what were they able to say to KD and his representation in this meeting to change his mind that these are the right people to remain on course? Because, Joe Tsai issued that public press release a couple weeks ago saying Steve Nash and Sean Marks have my full support.
Right.
How did they win back Kevin Durant's support? That's what I'm wondering right now.
That's a great question, too, because you're right. He was very adamant about not being here with those guys. He kind of drew a line in the sand, saying it's either them or it's me. And he was like, it's them. He was like, well, trade me. And they're like, well, we can't. So what do you want to do? You're under contract, buddy. You know what I mean? And thanks for that no trade clause, by the way. Thanks for putting that in your contract there, sir. So, yeah, man, I don't know. It's really interesting. I guess time kind of heals all wounds kind of thing. It could be that kind of scenario for him. It could be we're getting closer to the season. He just wants to play basketball because Kevin Durant loves to play basketball. It's what he enjoys doing so much. Could be the fact that I've been here a couple years and, you know what I mean, it's better to be with the devil you know than the devil you don't kind of situation. I mean, it could be a number of those things, man. But all we know for a fact, though, for sure, is they ironed it out in L.A., and he's going to be back, and it's now that big three. It's that we thought we were going to see last season. Now we're going to see now with Ben Simmons, Kyrie, and KD. Will
Niles isn't buying it. He said, "Time will not heal this wound, Dave."
He's playing. Something's healed. You know what I'm saying? Something's healed, bro.
Yeah, it's like the Ayton situation. Like, it was clearly fractured, and now they paid him, and hopefully it'll be able to work out. I think it's similar. But for me, it's like KD, I think, demanded this trade wanting to go to certain teams, obviously, right? It was the Suns and the Heat. And I think the Nets tried to make those moves, but they can't just give them away. So my guess for this conversation is like, look, KD, we tried to trade you. We tried to get you to the places we want. We can't just give you away. I think you understand that. So they don't have what it takes to make it work. Can we just try to run this back in and see what we can do down the road? And I think that's kind of like the only possible scenario where it was going to work out for all parties. Obviously, like, not preferred for KD, but that's like an impossible trade demand. Like, you cannot one side of that is going to be extremely lopsided, and that is always going to be the Nets because they're losing Kevin Durant. So I just think it was like impossible from the start, and now it seems like everybody's just kind of coming to terms with that.
That's the other really interesting thing to me, is that this is a very striking counterpoint to this recent trend of NBA superstars who, if they are unhappy with their current lot in life, their contract, the team they're playing for, the situation, and they want out, they do what Kevin just did earlier this summer and say, trade me. I want out, right. Trade me. And the recent trend has been those players eventually get what they want.
Yes.
Anthony Davis forced his way out of New Orleans. Yeah. James Harden forced his way out of Houston. And then forced his way out of Brooklyn.
Yes.
This has been the trend. We talked about it when we were talking about whether or not Zach LaVine would sign the offer that the Bulls gave him this summer, assuming that they offered him the max. If 2 or 3 years from now, Zach LaVine said, it's been real Chicago, but I want out, the advice that Rich Paul and his reps would give him is sign that Bulls contract because it's the most money, and if you want out later, we'll deal with it later, and we'll just get you out via trade. Does this somehow now change that? This one example of Kevin Durant, one of the biggest named superstars in the league, using that move to say, I know I'm under contract for 4 more years, but I want out, so get me out. And the team looking around at any and all trade options and offers and saying, you know what? None of these are good enough. Sorry, Kevin. No, we're not trading you. Yeah. It's a big swing back the other direction from the recent trend.
Yeah, that pendulum definitely was a huge swing. The main difference of this, Matt, is I think Kevin Durant is a victim of his own greatness. And what I mean by that is it's very hard to get equal value back for somebody like Kevin Durant. So a Donovan Mitchell or even a James Harden or Zach LaVine, no disrespect to any of them because those are great players, but Kevin Durant is better than all of them. So when they can ask for a trade, you can get something of equal value back, you know what I'm saying, for those kind of players. You know what I mean? What do you give for Kevin Durant, man? You know what I mean? Nothing is enough for Kevin Durant. What do you want? You want his Burks? Like, you can have them. You know what I'm saying? Like,
can't have these.
Well, probably not them, but we'll buy you some. If you need some Burks, I'll get you some. You want some Athletic Green? I mean, whatever you want, you give him. But it still won't be enough. He's kind of a victim of his own greatness. Now, I think when he gets a little older down the line, maybe the next 3 years, maybe it'll soften up then. You know what I'm saying? It'll change up then for him going to another team and actually getting some kind of equal value back. But as of right now, of who he is, man, and what he provides, and you saw those numbers where he was damn near averaging 30 a game last year, 7 rebounds and 6 assists. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's not a fall off. You know what I mean? And doing it, playing 30-plus minutes. You know, I think he played, 55 games, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, man, he's a victim of his own greatness. So I don't think it would deter other players from still kind of demanding that trade, you know what I'm saying, and trying to get what they want out of it.
I think that's true because of the 4 years left on his contract. you can trade Rudy Gobert for 1 million draft picks, even though he's got 4 years, because he's Rudy Gobert, he's not Kevin Durant. But there's no threat of Kevin leaving in free agency this summer, the way that there was a threat of Harden leaving in free agency this summer. Like the Nets were able to get a lot back for him, and they didn't have to pay him. Like the 76ers got super lucky he was willing to take a pay cut, because the Nets would have had to pay him too, and who knows if that would have been the case if he was still in Brooklyn. You think back to Kawhi. He was an expiring contract when they moved him to the Raptors. You think to Anthony Davis. I think he had a year or a year and a half left on his deal. So it's the 4 years to me. Like, you can't just trade him to get obviously worse when there's no threat of him leaving for nothing. And I think that's really the difference here. So it does become like, the better the player is, we're in this era of player empowerment, right? Where players can demand where they want to go or sign for however many, max contracts or years or whatever it may be. But at a certain level, if there's time left on your contract and you're that good, a trade is just not possible. And if he had a year left or even 2, I think this is a totally different story, where the Nets are now under a little bit more pressure to get whatever they can for him, because obviously he's not going to come back if he's demanding this trade.
Charlie in the comments pointing out something that a lot of people have been talking about on NBA Twitter this morning, kind of comparing this KD situation to what Kobe went through in the summer of 2007 when he was thought he was done being a Laker and wanted his way out, saying it's the same as when Kobe wanted to leave the Lakers in 2007. There was no real scenario where the Nets could get equal value, and no matter what he tried to do, they were never going to trade him. Although, I don't know. According to Kobe and a lot of other people in that Kobe situation back in 2007, they came very close to moving him.
It was a Luol Deng thing. Like, they didn't want to do it without Luol Deng, and Kobe didn't want to play without Luol Deng.
And it seemed like this KD thing, they never got close to a deal that they thought was good enough.
Exactly. There was no one player that they just said, oh, he's the deciding factor of this. We don't want to give him up, or we don't want to give him up. Maybe the Pelicans might be the closest to that, because they did not want to give up Brandon Ingram, what I'm saying, in that trade scenario. So maybe they're the closest in this. But, in general, it just felt like no matter what was on the table, they wanted more.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to like the way that the Nets are hamstrung right now, because they've traded all their future picks away to get James Harden. They can't afford to be bad. I think that would also change the scenario if they could do basically what the Rockets did, trade James Harden for a haul of picks, get bad themselves, and increase the value of their own picks that way. And now they're sitting pretty with Jalen Green and Jabari Smith and Tari Eason and all the Alperen Sengun, all the young players that they have, plus upcoming picks of their own that are going to be pretty high. Plus, who knows what happens with the Nets. I assume they're going to be good this year, but this whole thing could still explode. So they are in a great spot, and it was because they were able to get bad and because they had more of a threat that Harden would just walk in free agency for nothing, whereas the Nets can't afford to be bad, or, and they know that Kevin's not going to just leave in the next year for nothing.
This now makes the Brooklyn Nets a very, very intriguing team for this upcoming season, because they do theoretically have 2 stars and a kind of also a star. KD, Kyrie, Ben Simmons, all of them multi-time All-Stars.
Yes.
But they all have giant question marks on how much will they be bought in to winning for the Brooklyn Nets this season.
Yeah.
So and for all of their various reasons, KD unhappy, wanted to trade. Kyrie didn't really love the way that his offseason went down. Thought he was going to force his way out. Right. Thought he was going to decline this option with the Nets and get a longer term deal somewhere else. Maybe go to the Lakers and reunite with LeBron. None of that happened. And Ben Simmons, is Ben Simmons going to play basketball ever again? Who knows? It is wildly fascinating to try to pin down what this Brooklyn team will be and how good they could be.
Yeah.
Because if you say you're getting 70-plus games from all 3 of those guys, you're talking about a Brooklyn Nets team that, like, lock top 3 seed in the East, right?
Depends.
But nobody can say that confidently. No. Is KD really going to be bought in? Is Kyrie not going to be distracted by, like, pixie dust and ivermectin? Is Ben Simmons actually a guy who wants to play basketball right now? So many unanswerable questions.
Unanswerable questions here. Yeah, but they're very interesting. You're right. except for the awesome silliness that you just threw out there with it. But you're right. Everything you said is pretty dead on, and that's what makes them just an intriguing watch. You know what I'm saying? When the season begins, even in the preseason, like I'm just gonna be ecstatic to just see what they do. Does Ben Simmons play in the preseason because he hasn't played forever? You know, does Kyrie?
He's retired,
dude. Right. And it's funny because you know on the floor, Will, how they all kind of fit with each other, because they either two of those players do things great and one doesn't on both sides. Like when it comes to scoring, Kyrie and Durant, you know what I'm saying, elite scorers, you know what I mean? But Ben Simmons is not. When it comes to defense, Durant and Ben Simmons, elite defenders, but Kyrie is not. You know, so they kind of complement and put bandages on what those guys don't do great. And so it's going to be interesting to watch. And then the team around them that they have.
Right.
Because you have those three, but are the cupboards bare or not? You know, you got Curry. You know he's going to be a shooter.
Joe Harris,
like you
theoretically coming back healthy.
Hopefully he's healthy.
They just traded for Royce O'Neal. They've got Nick Claxton.
Correct.
They've got some young players that I think will be good in Cameron Thomas, Daron Sharp. I think we're overthinking this. They're going to be really freaking good. They have three just absolutely elite players. I think people forgot how good Ben Simmons is, and probably rightfully so, because he just disappeared last time he did play, which was like over a year ago. He's really good, and I think he's a great fit next to Kevin Durant, because everybody is a great fit next to Kevin Durant because he's like the most malleable superstar of all time. Kyrie, there's no more restriction on the COVID stuff, so he's going to be playing. Like, they have nothing to lose by sitting out and everything to gain by playing. So they're all competitors. I think, Kyrie probably still a bit of a wild card. I don't see why Ben Simmons would hold out any longer. He's on a different team. He got what he wanted, and he has an opportunity to be on a real winner next to two of the great players of all time. So I think they're going to be really good. They have great depth. It's probably going to be a little bit of a roller coaster, emotionally for them to get back on board, but they're professionals, and I think they're going to want to win. So why not try?
You're giving those three a lot of credit right now, Will. I will remain a giant skeptic until I actually see them playing solid basketball on the floor together more often than not.
And that's totally fair, but my guess is just that it will be okay. If you have that much talent, you'll be okay.
Fair. So we are going to do a full breakdown. You mentioned, the Royce O'Neal trade. They brought Claxton back on a pretty team-friendly deal. We're going to talk about everything that's offseason coming up on our Thursday episode, a full eval of their offseason. So stay tuned for that later this week. And after this break, we're going to talk about the other New York team and what they did this offseason. Oh, the Knickerbockers?
Oh, is that
you ever heard of the Knickerbockers? No. No, doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, not ringing a bell.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Not really.
Today's episode brought to you guys by our great friends at PointsBet. PointsBet Sportsbook is counting down the days, y'all, until the football season with a new offer every day until the season kicks off. From right now until September 8th. That's the NFL's opening day. September 8th.
That's when opening day
is? That's right around the corner. Right around the corner.
Right there.
Until the season kicks off. From now until September 8th, PointsBet Power Hour will unlock a new daily offer from noon to 1 p.m. Chicago time, a.k.a. Central Standard Time. Sign up for PointsBet now using that promo code CHGO to also get those 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. Don't miss out on your chance to get daily access to free bets, boosted odds, and so much more now through September 8th. But that's not all. If you make a $51 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free membership to CHGO, which unlocks all of our great exclusive web content at allchgo.com, including the most recent mailbag column that Mr. Gottlieb dropped yesterday.
That guy.
For you to read on allchgo.com right now. Plus, you get a free CHGO T-shirt of your choice from the CHGO merch locker. Ooh. There's some new ones out there right now. We also, by the way, all CHGO, CHGOlocker.com, 25% off today. All shirts.
Can't beat that.
All shirts, 25% off today.
I went crazy, by the way.
I placed an order today.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
I put an order in. Yes, I did.
And you can get that CHGO membership by downloading that PointsBet app, you guys. Download it today using promo code CHGO to take advantage of that limited time offer. Because we all know that once the game starts, once the NFL season starts on September 8th, Will.
Preach it.
The people don't just bet, tell them what to do.
Live your bet life.
There you go.
Oh, I'm so excited for betting on PointsBet on football Sundays. We're so close.
I keep looking over here because I'm waiting for Shirtless Wonder to come on up out of here and stand on that balcony.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
Shirtless Wonder lived on that side.
No. He's right there.
Wait.
The entire time it's been there.
There are two Shirtless Wonders then.
You're saying there's somebody else on this side too?
Yes.
Shirtless Wonder?
That's the one you were talking
No
about, right,
way.
Joey? The one over there?
No, that was the guy that was painting dangerously on the roof.
Oh.
He happened to be shirtless while doing that, but he was dangling off the roof while painting. That's the only time I've seen him.
I thought
now.
you guys were talking about.
No. This one.
Shirtless painter guy.
No, this is shirtless cigarette smoker on the balcony.
That's right. With a dog. He's got a dog too.
So I'm just wondering if this guy might like listen to some of our shows and he's like, yeah, that guy sounds like a real idiot. And then one day he's gonna be like, holy like that's me. Like that's Big Dave. He's standing there pointing at me. Like,
I mean, if he's listened to enough of our shows, he probably knows that our studios are here in the West Loop of downtown Chicago.
Hopefully he can put that together. You know what I'm saying?
And so does he also
Yeah.
reside in that look. He must have put that together by now.
Very curious to know what he
What?
does for a living. Like, I'm just fascinated with this human being
I
now.
think he pets a dog and shirtlessly smokes cigarettes for a
Yeah.
living.
It's the same, and it's the same sweatpants every time. It's the same black ones every single time, man. Will, I'm
That
fascinated.
makes the shirtless sadder.
It makes it more awesome to me.
Really?
Yeah,
There's
because-
nothing wrong with wearing sweatpants.
Nothing.
Okay?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I
Come on,
agree.
Will.
There's I can validate sweatpants for occasional at-home leisure wear.
Yes.
Sweatpants and shirtless just to me just look. It paints too sad of a picture. It's like, what happened to you in your life?
You equate that with like divorce?
Yes.
Or something like that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I
You're
get it.
divorce,
You're more of a
joblessness.
Birkenstocks, sweatpants, and tank top guy.
Just
Yes, Will.
like
the starter kit.
The starter kit.
like what one expired milk carton away from just throwing in the towel completely.
I quit life.
You know who else is a expired milk carton away from throwing in the towel completely?
Who's this?
The New York Knicks.
Hey, the segues are brilliant. Yes, they are.
I mean, I actually think that they're very confident coming into this season.
They are always
And then
confident.
Let's, I guess, just also put a giant asterisk on evaluating their offseason between now and the season starting, they could also add Donovan Mitchell to this whole big situation.
It's true. It's true. They
But
could.
for now,
now.
let's take a look at what the Knicks have done this offseason.
Sure.
So 2022 NBA draft night, they make a pretty big trade with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the details of that trade in case you forgot it. They traded the rights to the 11th overall pick to OKC because OKC was just making picks on picks this year.
That's what they do.
And the Knicks stockpiled for the near future, getting 3 first-round picks in 2023. They're all protected, and they come from Detroit, from Washington, and from Denver. What do you guys think about this trade that the Knicks made earlier this summer on draft night to say, OKC, you can have our pick this year, but we're stockpiling 3 on top of what we have next year?
Honestly, I'm gonna see the Will on this one because I have no idea. Like, I don't know what they were thinking or if there's something in the next draft that they like. I'm very confused by it. Maybe Will can straighten this out for me, please.
I feel like I'm Charlie Day, like mailer room meme, trying to figure out like the protections on these picks. And
I
where
got
they're
boxes
coming
full of
from.
Pepe Sylvia.
I cannot figure it out. There's 2, but I think it's interesting because one, from the Thunder standpoint, I know we're not talking about them, so I'll keep it brief. They have so many picks that at some point they needed to consolidate. And the guy they consolidated on, and they'll be able to do it again, but the guy they consolidated on was Ousmane Dieng, who like maybe will be an NBA player this year. I'm not sure. For the Knicks, I mean, it all comes back to what we were talking about yesterday. This is a mad dash to create as much cap space and get as many draft picks as they can so they can trade for Donovan Mitchell. And it's so transparent. I mean, this is just so transparent. So, yeah, I mean, basically everything they did was trying to appease Danny Ainge here. They had to pay to get rid of like Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks. I wasn't crazy about anybody that they could have drafted at 11, but just such a weird scenario where they just basically gave up what typically would be a really strong pick at number 11 for a bunch of like future protected picks that are probably not going to convey for a while, which probably means they're not as valuable, which means they're going to have to give even more of them in this Donovan Mitchell trade that eventually will happen.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you look at the picks coming via Detroit and Washington through OKC, two teams that could very well be in the lottery next year.
Yeah.
Washington and Detroit. Denver, even without Jamal Murray healthy, were a playoff team this past year. You expect him to be so again. I'm not sure what the exact projections on that Denver pick are, but you're right, Will, in that some of these might not convey right away. You're also right to say it's not about these picks, or it wasn't about picking at 11 this year. It's about clearing as much cap space as they could to go out and sign these guys.
Makes sense.
So because that was the big part of the Knicks offseason, well, let's move on to that. Quick note, they did also have a second-round pick, 42nd overall, which they used to draft Trevor Keels out of Duke.
Hooray.
But
Can I make one? Well, actually, are you gonna get? There's like 3 or 4 trades that happened that made all these pick works, but the Denver one actually got rerouted to the Hornets, who we'll talk about in a minute, in the Jalen Duren trade, which I also thought was really bad for both teams. So it's all a mess here. They're not even going to get that pick, which will be probably the only one that conveys this year.
there was so much craziness that happened on draft night with all these different trades, and then also immediately after draft night. Okay, but so the thing that the Knicks did. Right. Okay. Well, so yeah, let's talk about that. The trade with Detroit that said goodbye to Kemba Walker. I never understood why they wanted to make Kemba Walker a thing in New York, and then they clearly gave up on that fairly quickly in that three-way trade.
It's exactly what we talked about with Donovan. He's from New York, and he's supposed to be good. So they did whatever they could to get a New Yorker on the Knicks, and hopefully he was good, and it did not work out.
And we all knew how it was going to end with Kemba Walker. The second he went there, it was like, this is not going to work with Tibbs, period. This is just not going to work.
And then they had to pay to get rid of him.
Yeah. Like, it just, no.
Yeah. And we can get into that trade a little bit further because you know who else was involved in that trade were the Charlotte Hornets, who we're going to talk about next.
Yeah.
But so bye-bye Kemba in New York. They bring in Jalen Brunson, the guy that they lured away from the Dallas Mavericks after his breakout season there. Certainly the relationships that exist between Brunson and his inner circle and people who the Knicks hired. So Brunson was signed on a 4-year, $104 million contract. And that's pretty big.
Congratulations.
But they also made a couple of other significant moves, bringing Mitchell Robinson back on a 4-year, $60 million deal.
Yeah.
And a guy that a lot of Bulls fans, and I know our guy Will, had a close eye on, Isaiah Hartenstein, who was the backup big in LA for the Clippers this past year. They also stole him away from the Clips on a 2-year, $16 million deal. There you see the deets on all of those free agent signings. Thank you.
Whoa. What about Jericho Sims, former Texas Longhorn?
Can't leave out Joey's guy, Jericho Sims. I mean, that's the most important on all the signings on your screen right there, clearly.
Okay.
Thank you, Longhorns fan.
Hey.
One of the craziest jumpers in the NBA. That guy absolutely flies, Jericho Sims. It's like a 45-inch vertical.
I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but how much do you guys think Brunson moves the needle for the Knicks, if at all?
I mean, not really. I mean, yes, because he's good. He can play. He's skilled. We see that. But, like, if you're talking about elevating them up, you know what I'm saying, into a top 6 seed or something like that, no, I don't see that. Elevate them up to a top 8. I don't see that either. You know what I mean? But, sure, he'll make them better because he's already good, but he's going to Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
Who is awesome with point guards, okay? Like, the list is long with what he's done with point guards. Me and Will got to talk to one of them. That's a flex down in Summer League with Aaron Brooks. And he spoke of that, too, just of the loyalty and the respect that he had for Tom Thibodeau, man, and what he kind of does for those guys. So, yeah, I expect him to do that. And you got his father there also to be coaching with them as well. So he's going to help, but I just don't think, Will, he's going to be that kind of guy.
If they don't get hit with a tampering fine, it's going to be absolutely insane because they literally hired his dad to go get him. I don't think it moves the needle that much, but I also don't think they brought him there to be their number one option. They still have Julius Randle. They still have RJ Barrett, and obviously they're going after Donovan Mitchell. And I don't even think it stops there. Like, they're always going to be swinging big. So I think he's a great complementary piece. I think he's sort of a perfect combo guard to play alongside, you know, a star like Donovan Mitchell or multiple stars because he can shoot it. He can run some offense. He's a great defensive player. He can guard up and down. I think he's a really solid player, and he will obviously help them, but he's not somebody that, like, makes the engine run. And that's kind of what they need right now, just given where they are. So, like I said, I'm not it's almost like incomplete for them right now because there's going to be more moves. It's just a matter of for who and when. But I do like Brunson for them in general. It's just he's not there to be their number one guy.
Yeah, I mean, again, and a lot of this is predicated on also whether or not Donovan Mitchell shows up when you're talking about where is Jalen Brunson on the hierarchy of usage percentage of these pieces with this Knicks team when you also throw in Julius Randle and RJ Barrett. How many shots are they getting up versus how many shots Brunson's going to get up?
Yeah.
To me, I also really liked Isaiah and would have loved the Bulls to find a way to get him, maybe using their full MLE, but they didn't. The low-key most impressive thing to me is that Mitchell Robinson deal. 4 years, 60 for a guy who is in that sort of tier of not worthy of a max contract, but is still young, has a lot of upside, and is only going to get better. And I still haven't fully forgiven him for injuring Patrick Williams in Game 5 of 82 last season. But
Should you?
the other detail that I like about this Mitchell Robinson contract is it's de-escalating.
Yes.
He's a young guy on a de-escalating contract. Next season, this year 1 of 4, 17 mil. You work your way through this contract, and by year 4 of this deal, he's making just under 13 mil. Wow. That's a great contract for the Knicks, in my opinion.
Yeah, very smart move for them. And you saw his impact, as you mentioned, with Patrick Williams. But just defensively, his impact, man, that dude blocks shots. Okay, that's what he does. He blocks shots. He dealt with some injuries in his career, like that. So we'll see, if he can stay healthy. Even though he was relatively healthy, in 2021. He was relatively, I think he played like 70 games or something like that. But, yeah, I'd like him. I thought I wanted the Bulls to pursue him. I thought he would answer a lot of the questions we had, which was, that defense around the rim and that rim protection for the Bulls. He definitely answered that question. And, yeah, he's a good fit for them, that guy that you could throw those alley-oops to because he's super athletic on the top of all of that. So, yeah, he's what you thought Nerlens Noel was going to be. He's exactly what that is, man, and using that defense, using that athleticism, and he got that nice contract. So, yeah, more power to him.
It's just a little weird to me that they would then also go out and sign Hartenstein.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he was getting similar offers from other teams. I mean, it was just like the taxpayer or the non-taxpayer mid-level, which he ended up getting. So it seemed like he could have gotten competitive offers elsewhere. Now he's just going to be, maybe getting at most 24 minutes a night off the bench for the Knicks. So a little weird there. For me, why not just draft Jalen Durant instead of jumping through all these hoops to maybe get Donovan Mitchell with a bunch of protected future picks? I don't know. It's just kind of weird. And I also don't necessarily think that I like one or the other, but I don't think that going out and signing 2 centers is really the way that any team should operate in the year 2022.
No, you're right. That's a good point.
Some of the other pieces you got coming back for this Knicks team, you got Reddish, you got Fournier, who was a name, still is a name involved in these Donovan Mitchell talks. Obi Toppin, Quickly, our guy Grimes, who we were talking about just the other day, who we saw play in Summer League. And then the other name that I'm sure Bulls fans want us to touch on at least briefly, Derrick Rose, still under contract with the New York Knicks coming into this season. Had some injury issues again last year, but at times looked like he was the engine that made the Knicks go. Like he did when he first came to that Knicks team and was like, hey, man, I'm still D. Rose. I still got plenty left in the tank. And when he went, they went. And then dealing with injuries again last season. What do you guys see ahead for Derrick this year?
Kind of what you saw last year, I think. He's going to have those moments for sure because he's Derrick Rose. But will he be able to stay relatively healthy? That will always be the question forever going forward for the rest of his NBA career. Can he stay healthy enough to make that big old impact that we kind of want him to make, even though it's with the Knicks? I really, really don't. But I just want him to just be relatively pain-free and relatively healthy and, put up those numbers and have those games. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's in the Knicks uniform, it's still Derrick Rose, and I like seeing him succeed. But I don't know as far as the impact will be because a lot of that is health-dependent with Derrick Rose. But when he's out there, you see what he does when he's out there, man. They were talking him for 6th man of the year the one year when he was relatively healthy for the Knicks. So you see the impact he can have on the floor for that team, Will.
We should get one of those like counters podcast days since we last mentioned injury, and it would always be at 0 because we have to talk about injuries every single day. And when you talk about Derek, that's exactly right. You have to talk about injuries. 26 games last year, 35 the year before that. It's just sad. Like he's not going to play much, but you're right. He was, and especially during that playoff run against the Hawks, like he played really well. So as long as Tom Thibodeau is his coach, he'll have an opportunity to get minutes. As long as he's healthy. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine veteran player to have. They also lost Taj Gibson to the Wizards, which sad to see those guys break up, but they have a lot of guys, and that's why they're making these big swings for Donovan Mitchell. Cause like you need a guy, you don't need like Cam Reddish to be your sixth wing, like you need a guy.
Okay, so quickly before we move on, grades and projections for the New York Knicks and their offseason. I gave them a B-.
That's nice.
Because they did get Brunson away from Dallas. They brought back Robinson on, as I explained, I think a team-friendly deal. They got Hartenstein, and they beefed up their cabinet of draft picks in that trade. So B-. I still don't have a whole lot of faith as you see there. None of us see them as even making the play-in.
No. Don't see them at that. I had them at like 10.
Which would be the very last play-in spot.
I changed Dave's rankings from 10 to 12 to no play-in because
you can't have 10 to 12. It's either 7 to 10 or 11
I just
to 12.
changed it because
No, it's not. Only 10.
No, 10 is in the play. Is it?
So
not
I
in
didn't
the
know. I didn't know what to do because it could have been. It's either play in. 10 is in the play in, but 11 and 12 are out.
Dave has been making
you
his own
said-
tiers this
So
whole time.
Right.
This
Dave,
whole time we've been doing these.
That
he's
sounds like
been a
my
little
life.
all over the place with the tiers. So I just said, I think this is what Dave meant by it, and
Okay.
I'll just clarify, on the show that he had 10 to 12, but I put no
Okay.
play in.
All right. I didn't think that. That's not what I meant by it. But I see where your mental was on that. But I'm not mad about it. It's the Knicks. I don't care. You want to say they'll make the play-in? Okay, that's cool with me. It's fine. But I kind of was like, maybe. That's why I said Brunson kind of moves the needle for you. That's kind of why I had them at like maybe they can get in there at the 10 or something like that. Because he could have one of those months that we saw him have like in the playoffs for Dallas. Like that could be the case. But yeah, they still have Randall, who's really good. They still have RJ Barrett, who's really good. They still have those guys. We mentioned Mitchell Robinson, Hartenstein coming off the bench. Those guys are going to help that basketball team. So if they make the number 10 play-in, I wouldn't be super duper surprised by it. But I just don't have that kind of faith. You know what I'm saying, in that kind of squad. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I don't really see it. I mean, barring another big move for them, I just don't think they have. I know they won like 45 or something games the year before, but like they missed the play-in by 6 games this past year. I'm not really sure, Jalen Brunson and, hopefully you get some growth out of quickly and, guys like Miles McBride, Obi Toppin, maybe help sort of push you into that mix. But I don't really see any of these other teams having gotten worse. Maybe you could talk about the Hornets a little bit, which we will do shortly, but I just don't really see them as being a real threat. If they get Donovan Mitchell, I think they're a clear play-in team, but until that happens, we just don't really know. And so for me, C- for the grade, just because I think they are playing their hand a little bit too much and making their stance a little too obvious to the point where they're going to end up way overpaying for guys that probably don't help them that much. I mean, that's kind of what happened with Brunson, right? It's like they had to overpay him to pry him away from Dallas. I like Brunson for them. I'm not, I don't really think it was their whole plan doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. So it's nice that they got him, but I'm not really sure. I still don't really understand what they're doing. So for me, it was C-, and I think they missed the plan.
Dallas is still upset with how they did it.
Oh, for sure. For sure they are.
Yeah.
The Cubans always upset about something.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Okay, so there it is. There is your New York Knicks offseason coming up. We will talk about what the Charlotte Hornets did this offseason. Another one of those teams that's probably going to be fighting for a spot in that play-in again this upcoming season. But first, Big Dave, tell the people out there how they could be helping themselves with a little thing called Owen.
It's something you can start your day with, your afternoon, or your evening. It doesn't matter the time. You get you some of this in you, you're going to feel good. because it's free of those artificial ingredients. It's allergen friendly, no gluten or dairy, and it's easy on the tummy tum, y'all. It is easily digestible. It's Owen. It's 100% plant-based protein shake that gives you nutrition that works as hard as you do, as hard as Joey does, hard as Sean does, as hard as this man does, as hard as Shirtless Wonder does, because I just think he's like an espionage spy for the FBI or something like that. It works as hard as him as well. Works out all these wonderful people. And you know who else loves this drink? You know who else wants some more of this OWN deliciousness?
QB1?
QB1! Justin Fields. There it is. Go get it. Touchdown. That's how we do it, baby. So why don't you get down with all of that wonderfulness, y'all? Because OWN and CHGO have partnered up to give you this awesome offer right here. Get 20% off your first purchase at liveown.com. Just use that code CHGO20. That's 20% off your first purchase at liveown.com. Code CHGO20. So why don't you join all of us and join Justin Fields and all of the S right here and try OWN, because it is only what you need. Because as Justin Fields would probably say, OWNs. A win. Hey.
You hear the good news?
Tell me.
He's playing the entire first half Saturday against Cleveland. Or bad news, depending on how you feel about the Bears' offensive line.
I don't feel good about that at all. That's not good news to me, Matthew. When the question was asked earlier, I was like, no, don't play him at all. He can sit down and let's go in season 1. All right. I mean, okay. All right. That does mean I'll actually watch.
Yeah.
It does mean that. Like
I was watching Trevor Siemian last Thursday.
Trevor Siemian,
shout out. Northwestern Wildcat.
Yeah.
Throwing tutties for the Bears.
Solid backup out there, man. He's been solid in these games. Yeah. He has. He's been really solid.
I was teasing my buddy who went to Northwestern, who's in one of my fantasy leagues. I was like, you got to draft Trevor Siemian like first round, right?
First round.
Because he's a Northwestern Wildcat who's QB2 for the Bears. He's just dumb enough. He just might do it.
And Mark Shannon, you were correct. That's Chicago Sky, baby.
Game 3. It's over. They got it in the bag.
See that ass whooping they put on them? My God.
What?
Whoa.
It's over. They got it in the bag.
Yeah.
I hope so too, but that's like, it's no superstition.
Did you see game 2?
Bro.
I saw.
When the Sky play to the height of their capabilities, the Liberty are nowhere near them.
Nowhere near it. All right.
That just freaks me out as any sports fan.
No.
I'm sorry. If they could beat a team in a playoff game by the widest margin in WNBA playoff history, they could go ahead and clean that series up in Game 3. I don't care what floor they're playing on.
I feel you if this was the Aces or somebody that was playing. I'd feel you, but nah, bro. They supposed to.
I hope you guys are right. 100%.
Shout out also Wade, Executive of the Year in the WNBA.
Out. Yes, man. Shout out.
James Wade.
Yes. Big shout out.
Made some great moves in the offseason to beef up that core that
Gardner,
came back.
Man. My God. Gardner's,
goodness gracious.
Beast.
And Meesman, also a newcomer this season.
Right. Great point.
Okay,
Great point.
Back to the NBA. Charlotte Hornets, guys. Pretty low-key offseason for them.
Chilling.
With the exception of one very glaring problem that happened to one of their biggest players off the court. We will get to that.
True.
But chronologically, let's start with draft night. The 3-team trade between the Hornets, Knicks, and Pistons. The Pistons get the rights to the number 13 overall pick, Jalen Durant, who Will just mentioned previously discussing the Knicks, and that old man, Kemba Walker, via the Knicks. The Hornets get a 23 first-round pick from Denver and 4 future seconds. What do we think about this deal for the Hornets, Dave?
Okay, cool. Like, sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you get your 4 second-round picks. Got you that. Like, yeah, okay. I don't hate it. You know what I'm saying? It's not bad. I'm not scratching my head about it. I'll say that. I'm not just like, what the hell are they doing? Like, yeah, you got you a nice get back for that. So, sure.
Can you put the graphic back up for a second, Joey?
Toss it back.
The graphic back up.
Give them
I need to examine this one more time. Okay, so they got a first-round pick and 4 seconds for Jalen. Like,
for basically
having
the rights to 13. Yeah.
Like,
but it's because they knew they had that pick number 15 just 2 spots down the road.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Which is why they probably felt okay trading 13 in that package.
Still got their guy.
Why not take Duran and Tari Eason or like AJ Griffin or something? Like, they could have made themselves, and obviously they didn't know what was going to go on with Miles Bridges, and that's a whole separate can of worms that we can talk about. But like LaMelo Ball is like 20 years old. I mean, they're in a position where they can load up on talent and take big swings. And a core of LaMelo, Tari Eason, and Jalen Duren in the next 3 to 6 years is going to be awesome. And like we talked about it when we did the draft evaluation, I'm not really a believer in Mark Williams. I think he'll be fine. I think Jalen Duren has a chance to be really special. I was really surprised that he fell even outside of the top 10. And I know they had a lock or whatever to get Mark Williams, but like, why not take him and draft another wing and really set yourself up with a ton of young talent, as opposed to just doing like the really safe thing of taking a guy that, maybe has a little bit of a higher floor than Duren, but certainly not as high a ceiling. So and I talk about this with Mark on our Friday editions, where I just believe in going for it and being a little bit more aggressive than conservative when it comes to like going for talent. And this was an example of just something that I really don't like, because it's just way too safe for me. And I don't think it raises their upside when they have like a potential superstar in the making. Like, you got to put real talent around them.
It is weird to think about. Like, maybe they knew, talking to everyone else on draft night as those picks were going off the board, that the guy that they really wanted was Mark Williams, and that he was going to be there at 15.
Yeah.
So they felt like it was redundancy to keep pick 13.
No, exactly right.
But it is weird that, from your perspective, well, I get it, because then you're like, okay, well, if we feel confident in not needing 13 and 15, and we're going to get Williams at 15, so let's make a deal and trade away 13. You're just basically kicking the can down the road to getting a first-round pick next year and 4 seconds. And look, I'm not saying that 4 second-round picks is worthless, but it is weird when you think, like, why do they want those 4 second-rounders so badly,
They lost value. I really think, like, just from an asset play, you lost value. And then when you put on top of that, like, the talent that you could have in Jalen Duren and potentially Tari Eason or AJ Griffin or one of these other guys that they could have drafted, I just think they lost value. And, regardless of how you want to play it in terms of going all in or being really safe and conservative, that's fine. But like, they lost value from just like a pure economic standpoint. And I just thought it was a bad move. Like, you're going to end up with like a pick in the mid to late 20s from the Nuggets and 4 seconds, when you could have had like a chance at a real, like, high level contributor.
Fair enough. So they did, in fact, take Mark Williams with the 15th overall pick. We talked about him a lot leading up to the draft. We knew that the Bulls liked him, but would probably not have him on the board. He goes 3 picks before the Bulls take Dalen Terry 18th. There you see again his measurements. Does have that 7'6" wingspan, a guy who can block a lot of shots, finish at the rim, but as you've said, Will, other very drastic limitations to his offensive game as of right now. It was an underwhelming draft night for them, from my perspective as well. Even though I do like Williams, I think I like him a little bit more than you do, Will. And then you get to free agency, and you're like, okay, they did even less in free agency than they did on draft night. Cody Martin, 4 years, $31.3 million. That's it. That is the only signing the Hornets made this summer.
Yeah.
Bring back Cody Martin, baby. Done. To-do list, done.
We're going to system.
They also fired a coach that I thought was really good for them in James Borrego, and brought back a coach that they fired a couple of years ago in Steve Clifford, who obviously didn't work out or they wouldn't have fired him. So like, crazy. I don't know, Joe, you're going to show my grade in a second. I'm talking myself down. Like, make it lower. I do not like what the Hornets did. They just made themselves so much worse. They lost a ton of value, and I think they kind of set themselves back.
The thing I liked about the free agency was Mitch Kupchak said, we're not going to do anything in free agency. Like, that's what he said. He said, we're not going to make any splash signings and do anything like that. And he was a man of his word. They didn't make any splash signings. Like he said, they signed Martin and they went home. Like, that's exactly what they did what they wanted to do. You know what I mean? And when you say what you want to do and you keep your word, I honor that. Whether I agree with it or not, I honor that you set a plan and you saw it out.
Okay, so,
it was a bad plan.
They got Melo.
Again, Will, like I said, whether I agree with it or not, you had one and you stuck to your guns. I give him that.
Gordon Hayward is still around. Terry Rozier making a lot of money to be a Charlotte Hornet.
Hayward should be gone, by the way.
PJ Washington, Kelly Oubre still there, McDaniels, Plumlee. It's just a very mediocre roster.
It is. Hayward, I thought he should have been traded, honestly. Yeah. I thought that would have been an excellent move for them because you can still lie to people about Hayward in his game. Yes.
Can you?
Yes, you can. Okay. You can still lie to him about that. Look, he can get you 20. I'm telling you, he can do it. He can get you 20 out there. You can still get away with Gordon Hayward, and maybe you can fix him like that. He's got another 3 teams left in him, I think. You can still do that with Gordon, man. But they didn't make a trade for him. Like you said, they weren't going to do any splashy things or anything like that. So they held on to it. And there goes the to-do list.
I really like Cody Martin. I wanted, he's the guy that I thought the Bulls should go after. But, like, and the Miles Bridges thing, like, this is still unresolved, and we don't know for sure what happened, but it looks terrible. They obviously did not, that he's basically a free agent right now, and he's radioactive. Like, no team is going to sign him. They lost him for nothing. They still have a bunch of, like, older vets in Gordon Hayward and Rozier with a younger core, which tells me that, like, they don't really have an identity. I really don't get what they're trying to do. And if they're trying to be good right now, then why wouldn't you try to go get some more talent with your draft picks as opposed to just, like, trade everything away so that you could lock in Mark Williams? And if you're trying to be bad, then you should still go out and try to get as much talent in the draft as you possibly can and move Gordon Hayward and move Terry Rozier for picks because that's the direction you want to go. So it just seems like they are on the wrong side of mediocre, and I'm not really sure how they get out of there. And
not just Miles, but also Montrezl Harrell as well.
Trez is currently a free agent, well, floating out there in the ether. Yeah. But so Bridges, we can touch on it briefly. He was arrested on June 29th, released on bond. He's currently facing 3 felony domestic violence charges. He did plead not guilty on July 20th. This is the guy who led the Hornets in points per game last season.
Yes, he did.
And right now, things do not look great for him.
It does not.
And thusly do not look great for the Hornets.
It's disgusting. So
yeah. I mean, go ahead.
And it also contributes to like their offseason as a whole. As terrible as all of that is for Bridges and for, his wife and kid, like, it's so bad for everybody. That whole situation is just like, and they're just like festering in it. Like, they're not doing anything to try to like, to get out of there. I don't know. It's bad. It's just very bad.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. So, and this is a criminal case. He's facing 3 felony counts right now. A slightly different situation than what Deshaun Watson has just gone through in the NFL, but it'll be interesting to see how the NBA handles this from their side of things, because the NFL increased Deshaun Watson's suspension from 6 games to 11, and a lot of people were still saying, really?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
What, if anything, will be on top of what he faces criminally and legally, what is he going to face from the NBA? Because I feel like in recent years, with Adam Silver at the helm, the NBA has had shorter and shorter leashes of leniency when it comes to stuff like this. If you screw up, you are going to pay for screwing up in this manner, which is 110% inexcusable.
Yeah, and I see the NBA coming down on them just for the reasons you just said right there. They have shown that they're not going to put up with stuff like this, and they shouldn't put up with stuff like this. It's it's a terrible situation, man. It's just so bad all around. And it was in the year like he was supposed to have the big contract year and do all that stuff, coming off of being
he played awesome last
20-point scorer. He played great. He was clearly the number 2 guy for LaMelo, and they were building their chemistry like that. And I mean, just being an idiot, man. You know what I'm saying? Doing just dumb shit. Not
to get too much into it, but I'm curious because the NFL has always been like comparatively a small potatoes. Like, if you are an offender of a domestic, teams will sign you once you've cleared the league-wide sanctions. Like, we've seen it, Tyreek Hill, like Kareem Hunt. If you clear the suspension, teams will sign you. I'm curious, outside of the NBA sanctions that they come down with, like, I could really see, just with where the NBA is at as a league, just teams saying, like, you know what, we're good. Even if you're not on league suspension, we're just not. We can't have that on our roster. So I'm curious. I think that's a real possibility.
Yeah, it's going to be curious to watch going forward, man, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he's done in the NBA.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, our quick grades and projections for the Hornets. I'm guessing that did Will give them an F based on everything that Will has told us about how he feels about the Hornets offseason?
I think now he gives them an F.
Okay. Yeah. So we're kind of all in the same boat.
Yeah.
C+, C-.
Yeah.
We, Dave, still see a path for the Hornets to make the play-in. I don't know about you. For me, it is my complete lack of faith in the Knicks as an organization.
Yes.
That I still have the Hornets squeaking into the play-in. Will, you don't even see them as a play-in team.
Yeah, and I see this, and I probably should have gone harder on the grade, but I also don't know, like, are the Knicks jumping into the play-in? I obviously don't think so. Are the Wizards? I don't think the Pistons are ready yet. Like, I'm not really sure who else make it. Maybe they kind of like fall sort of ass backwards into that last play-in spot, but I certainly don't think they're even that caliber of team. Now, LaMelo is truly a special player. So maybe he just like ascends and takes them there, but I don't know. I don't really see them doing so much damage, especially considering how important of a player Miles Bridges was to them. And the fact that not only did they not replace him, which, they can't do, they're not going to do, but they just continue to let the rest of the league pass as, now probably their second and third most important players are Rozier and Gordon Hayward, who are not getting any younger.
I did want to say something. Will Charles in the comments is upset because you have not given us a Brazil story. He wants a story from Brazil from you. He's very upset that he's been here this entire time and hasn't gotten a Brazil story from you, Will.
That's a real change of subject.
Yeah. You can think about it and, give us one on Thursday.
Today we went on a walking tour of the historical area of Rio. And so we walked around and got to learn about, some of the cool buildings and architecture and just history. It was a former capital of the country. Now it's Brasilia. So there's like a lot of history there. Trying to think about what else, but I don't know. I can come with some more stories in the future. Sorry, Charles, I'm not giving you enough.
Such a tourist taking walking tours down there in Brazil. Continue to enjoy yourself. I've given up on the idea of Will ever coming home. I hope you enjoy living in Brazil for the rest of your life. I miss you.
Yeah.
He's not dramatic at all. Yeah.
We had a guest on deck for tomorrow. We had to reschedule that guest for next week. So tomorrow, Will, you're off. Dave and I are going to hang out and just do some AMA with our fellow Bulls fans. So join us for that. Will, you'll be back in the fold with us on Thursday when we will break down every nook and cranny of the Nets offseason. And that will complete our series of offseason evals of all these teams in the East that the Bulls are going to be vying for East playoff standings with.
Yes.
In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter, Bulls_Peck, Bow, BAWL Sports, Won't Gottlieb. We are CHGO_Bulls. Keep it locked right here on the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We got our guys, Cody and Sean, coming up. CHGO Bets at 4:30. We got White Sox pregame at 5:30. And then following White Sox game and Cubs game tonight, we got Cubs and Sox postgame.
And who's that guy over there?
That's Joey.
And who's that guy over there?
That's Chris.
Hey.
And that's Sean. Hey, Sean.
Shaved his head on TV.
Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed today's show. Helps us out a lot. Make sure you're subscribed to the CHGO Sports channel on YouTube if you aren't already. Until tomorrow, Bulls Nation, appreciate you tuning in as always. For Joey, Big Dave, Matt, Will, see you, Red. Be good.